All right, guys, we got a Honda in here. I'm always happy when someone brings me a Honda to work on. I love these bikes. This is what I started my son on back when he was 5 years old. He's 21 years old now. He can ride anything. So these are great starter bikes. One of the problems they have, though, sometimes they sit around for a while and the fuel goes bad in the carburetor, and we got to clean that up. So I want to flush the fuel tank out. Like I tell you guys, always flush your fuel out. I don't know how long this gas has been in here, and I don't know how long it's been in the can before that. So we're going to take that out. Now, taking this whole tail section comes off as one unit from the side shrouds right here. The seat, the side panels, and the rear fender all come up together. So these are the only fasteners that you have to take off. These two plastic ones that go in the front. Okay, they go right in here. When this sits on the top of that, they slide through there. Take the center and pull the center up, and then pull the whole pin out. Then you have two Phillips head. These two Phillips head attach the shrouds to the tank. All right, make sure you put some kind of grease when you put these back in. You don't want them to seize inside the tank. So you can take those two out. And you have the last two 10 millimeters that are underneath the seat. And these two are they're right there. That's where those go on, right there. So we took those off, and now this whole unit can come off. Okay, so there's the whole unit right there, and now we have this. So at this point here, I'm going to finish taking the tank off. I got a 12 millimeter in the front, and then I have another one here in the back. We're going to get that off and get the tank out of the way, dump all the fuel out of it, and that'll give us plenty of access to get everything we need to get to. Make sure you disconnect the fuel line right here. Let's get that off, get that out of the way. Okay, so now that we're left with this right here, we're going to get the air box off because I want to check the air filter as well. It's been sitting. I want to make sure no animals have made a nest inside of there. So you got a couple hoses connected to it. You got a drain right here in case any water gets in there. You have a case breather right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off with the case breather. I'm going to pull off this 10 millimeter right here, 10 millimeter right here, Phillips head right here, and we'll pull this air box off. Remember, if these lines have been on here a long time, don't just pull them straight off. Grab them, twist them a little bit, and that'll kind of break the bond. Twist them back and forth, and then pull them off, and then they'll come off. All right, let's keep going. So this one has a ground, and then this one has a spacer so you don't crush the plastic. Okay, here's the two different ones. This one with the spacer section on it right there is so that you don't crush the plastic, and then this one without the spacer right here is for your ground. So don't forget that ground wire, and we're getting close. We just got to pull that Phillips off, this one line out of the bottom right here. And then just pull it back. All right, and this whole unit right here is going to come out. That's our air box. All right, so we're going to open that up too, a couple Phillips heads. Just make sure everything is good inside of there. Make sure it's clean and there's no issues. All right, so I took the two screws off right there, pull it apart, and this is what you're looking at. And this is what their air filter looks like on these little XR50s. This comes out of here, and it's just a foam mesh, and you can see there's all grass inside of here. It's pretty soaked with gasoline. So we're just going to give this a good little cleaning here, and then we'll put that back in. Other side of this is going to be a metal screen. Right inside of there. All right, so just make sure all the stuff is all cleaned up. All right, so with the air filter cleaned and drying, I just cleaned it off with some soapy water, rinsed it out good, and I got it drying now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off now. The next step is going to be these two 8 millimeters, and this cap right here. So let's grab the cap. This is the throttle slide. Just going to pull that up out of the way. All right, and then I'm going to take these two 8 millimeters off. Again, we got a couple more lines in here. These are vent lines. On this side right here, you can just grab those, twist them, and pull them off. All right, and then this is our overflow line right here. That'll just come off with the carburetor. Two 8 millimeters. All right, so with these 8 millimeters loosened all the way, the carburetor, the line, and everything is just going to come right off. All right, let's bring it over to the bench, open it up, let's clean it up. All right, you guys know me. This is one of my favorite parts, is opening these up and finding out what's inside. Remember, you got an O-ring right here. Don't lose that. You got two Phillips heads. So hopefully these Phillips heads will come right out. If not, I'll show you how to get that out. But you can see it's bleeding out all this old fuel right now. So let's get those two Phillips heads off. All right, guys, remember, before you start digging right into those, wake them up, let them know it's time to get out of bed. So we're going to just automatic center punch them a couple times. Okay, and that's going to wake them up. whenever you're pushing hard on it, make sure like you pay attention to all the stuff. Like here's the fuel line. I'm not going to put it side down and just put all that pressure on that fuel line. So pay attention to what you're doing. This side's nice and flat. I can put it right here and then kind of push into it sideways and break these loose. Look at that. Just from tapping them, they're already pretty loose here. Coming right out. No problems. Okay. So these are JIS screws. A lot of people will chastise you if you call them Phillips, right? I'm using a number 2 Phillips head snap-on tip, and it works really good. I found over the years, and this tip has little teeth in it. I don't know if you can see it, but they're good. All right, so we're going to take this off right here. Here's our jets and everything underneath it. We have this O-ring right here. Don't spray carb cleaner all over that O-ring. Just be careful with that. Pay attention. We have a Phillips head right here, or it's also a JIS, got the dot on it. So we're going to take that off and get this needle, seat, and everything off so we can clean all that out. We got a jet right here we're going to pull out and clean. All right, so sometimes this gets stuck inside there. You want to make sure that's all good and clean in there and that there's no residue or anything on here. This fuel doesn't look that bad. It's definitely yellow. It's starting to get old. So we're going to make sure that all that is cleaned out of there. All right, so this gasket is stuck in there. A lot of times they use like a sealant in there to keep them stuck in when they're putting them together. So I'm going to leave that in there. I'm just going to be careful when I'm spraying it here with carb clean, and I'm going to use some compressed air on all these jets and everything. Make sure that you look down the throat when you're spraying in and you can see the carb cleaner going through everything. So let's say this one right here. It's a little pilot. There we go. Seeing the look inside that hole right there. Let me show you. All right. And then inside of here. Looks good. All these holes, make sure you got, see that coming out of there? Make sure they're all working good. All right, again, here's our pilot. You see that? We just blew out that. All right, it's coming out of there. Get all these holes cleaned up. Very simple carburetor, not a lot to it. In here, I'm going to spray some in the fuel intake there where the needle seat sits, and I'm going to take a Q-tip. I'm just going to get inside there really good, make sure that that's nice and clean. Everything looks good in here. This really doesn't look too bad at all. Taking the Q-tip, it's got some of that carb cleaner on it, just wiping down inside the slide area, make sure that that's all good. All right, looking good. Try to dry this gasket off quickly so the carb cleaner doesn't mess with it at all. All right, our main jet right here, we're going to take the carb cleaner again, blow through this one, make sure that we got looking good there. Get any kind of old fuel off of the float and off the needle. Okay, remember there's a spring right in the back side of this. Make sure that that's good. Looks good. Everything looks good here. Inlet, make sure there's nothing clogged in there as well. Make sure you... All right, that all looks good. So there we are. I'm going to blow this off with some compressed air before we reassemble it. So let me do that. All right, so time to reassemble. We're going to take our float needle, and the float needle sits inside, okay, right there in the float. Let me turn it around so you can see it. Okay, there's a little hook right in there, and it sits right inside the tab right there, okay? And then we're going to take that whole thing, drop it back in. Guiding the needle back in, then we're going to put this Phillips back in here. And don't strip these things out when you put them back together. Get it snug. All right, make sure everything is moving as it should. Take our main jet. Okay, these are simple carburetors. Now there is a mixture screw right below this. It's a tamper-proof. There's nothing in there. But that's where the mixture is if you needed to add that to it. But I would just leave it alone. By blowing carb cleaner through here and through every other port in here, everything's going to be fine there. Now here we have our overflow. Make sure you have the overflow tube working, and you blow some air in there. Make sure it's coming out of the tube so that that's clear, just in case you get any overflow. You don't want it all going in the bike, filling up the bike, so you want to make sure your overflow hole is working as well. All right, and this one is good to go. So we're going to take this whole setup right here. I'm going to put it back on. If you have an older CRF and the gasket's gone in there, just replace the bowl gasket. In this case, it's still in good shape. Okay, everything looks good. This is your idle screw, so don't take this one out. Just leave it where it's at, and everything will go back to normal when you put it back together. All right, let's go wipe down the throttle slide. All right, throttle slide, I just have some carb cleaner on here. I'm just going to wipe this down. Just give it a once over. Make sure there's no debris or anything on there. Everything is nice and clean. In here, don't forget you have a gasket on the carburetor, and then in here, you have another one right there, okay? So make sure all those gaskets and everything are still in place and everything looks good. So look at that O-ring right there. If you turn it the right way, you can see light through the top of that little peak. And what's going to happen there is that it's going to let air suck through the top portion right there and right through past the carburetor. And you can see the reason that that's pushing out of there is because that manifold is cracked. All right, that gap shouldn't be there. All right, so luckily I have another one in my drawer because I work on a lot of Hondas here. So you can see how that one is cracked. This one is good. New O-ring in there. So we're going to start to reassemble everything. All right, all this back together the same way. Don't over tighten anything. Don't strip anything. Be patient. You have your breather line here. We have our overflow, our case breather going into here. We put that back on. We got the 10 here, and we got the 10 here that I still got to tighten that one up for the ground wire that goes right there. So let's get that tightened up, and we're rocking on here. All right, so at this point, the slide's back in. Everything's here. I'm going to dump all the gas out of the tank, put some fresh gas in there, slosh it around a little bit, dump that out, and then put the tank back on. And we're just about ready to start it. All right, so the tank is back on. I got some new ethanol-free fuel in there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel on. And just let the bowl fill up and make sure that we don't have anything leaking. Everything looks good. All right, beauty. Let's put the plastic back on. Give it a couple kicks, see what happens. All right, so I'm going to kick it with no choke on to see what it does. See if it starts like that. So if you over choke these things, they'll flood. So always try with no choke first. All right, so here it is. Idling just fine. Running like a champ. You know what this means? We gotta take it for a ride. Let's go ride this little fitty. All right, it runs awesome. Rode it up and down the block. My neighbors got a kick out of seeing me ride this little thing, but it runs good. That's all it was, guys. A quick carb clean. Make sure you keep up on these things. Pay attention to that manifold. It was broken on this one. I haven't seen them broken. Someone must have tried to get it off or something and cracked it. So, but other than that, make sure you change the fuel out. Fresh fuel, fresh spark plug, and it'll fire right up, guys. Hopefully this helps you get these little 50s running for your little guys. Please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for further notifications. Until next time, this is Tepcocyclerepair.